Football team first protest their Eldorado football game?
Well, about 2 years ago, we started to look at the equity of our scheduling. So we started with a simple question of, does the kid at Highland High School deserve the same type of schedule that the kid at Eldorado gets? Now, we're not picking on Eldorado. They don't do their schedules just like we don't do ours, but we use them as the example. And what we found is that a student athlete at Highland High School is playing 59% of their games at classification, which means, when we say classification, which means the same size school. And then we play 41% of a school much larger than us. And then when you look at the Eldorado schedule, now granted they're in the largest division, the largest classification, they play 85% of their schedule at classification and 15% of the schedule down. The student athlete at Highland never gets the opportunity to play down. There's a couple of reasons why that's a huge impact. So when you look at it, you can say basically we have a 50% of our schedule swing into a much larger school to play against. And so we looked at it and we brought that to the attention of APS, and under this system, there isn't much they could do for us. And so we began to say, the system's broken and we want you to address it. And we knew that our numbers were going to be down, obviously because of COVID. And when you think of it, a third of our student body is ineligible, which means a third of our student athletes, the pool which we draw from is a third smaller. And so we knew we were going to be in this situation. And we did everything we could by meeting after meeting, after email. And we met with Dr. Blakey and Jean Saavedra, and we started the process of correcting this inequality. So when it finally got to this point, we still have some loose ends that we have to take care of, but they recognized that there was a problem. And they tried initially to say, hey, let's stop doing this in the next cycle. And that didn't help us this year. And so we really pressed them for some options. And so the families got together in football particularly to say, and now we've become, this is much more of not a political statement on inequality as in safety. We're basically a school of 1,100 that's going to play a school of 1,900. So it's almost twice as big as us. And we have 5 of those on this schedule for football. So we have 5 schools that we're going to play against that are significantly larger than us. Larger amount of athlete pool, but also larger in that particular sport that more older students are participating, more juniors and seniors, which means we're going to play our freshmen, 14-year-olds, against an 18-year-old. And we know that in the male frame, that's a significant difference. And where we came to was that it's a safety situation. We really want to encourage our kids to come back from football. We've been in this situation before. And the football coaches, after the scrimmage, decided that we were unable to match the physicality, and it presented an imminent danger for our players. And so we made the decision not to participate in that game. Any other questions?
Oh, yes. Why do you think that it was happening this year? Because you mentioned that it happened in the past. Why was it a bigger problem this year?
I think it's a perfect storm. I think we have less eligible participants. We actually, it is something that's been building. The issue of the inequitable schedule over time has reduced our overall participation in our athletic programs to bare minimum. So we knew this was coming, and if you look at the history of Highland High School since about 2013, 2012, the school was 1,600 at that point. The numbers were up in football, probably close to 90. And over this period of open enrollment and of our school overall population being reduced, we could see that the toll from the scheduling had a major impact. For example, baseball, the numbers, we didn't have enough participants in baseball this last year, and we were unable to field a team. And we do believe that the scheduling plays a major factor in that. Young players that come out, watch the varsity get steamrolled by teams that have tremendous more experience because of the circumstance, then it makes it more difficult to retain those athletes over a long period of time. And that is just, it's human nature. Do you really want to play on a team that's always getting hammered? It's almost impossible. And so while we have some of the greatest coaches in the Albuquerque public school system, we're swimming upstream constantly. And it was time for Highland High School, which Del Norte joined with us and Valley joined with us, to make a stand on, we can't keep doing this. It's not good for the experience of the kids at Highland High School. We can't do it. I hope it answers the question.
Yeah, that answers my question. Thank you. Is this just affecting football, or do you think it will affect other sports too?
I think it always football is more of a safety issue, and we have 6 classifications in football because it makes a huge difference when a school of 600 is playing a school of 1,200. That's a huge leap. When a school of 1,200 is playing a school of 2,200, that's 1,000 kids leap. It's a huge difference in football. In other sports, for example, let's compare ourselves against Volcano Vista, a school of probably 2,200, or maybe even more now. At all 3 levels, at all 3 levels, you would have, let's say, girls soccer. You'll have 3 teams. Each team would make up about 22 kids. But that means your C team's primarily freshmen, but they have 2 coaches. So they're getting 2 coaches as a freshman. As a sophomore, you might play JV or C team again, but you'd have 2 coaches on the JV. You've had 2 coaches on the freshman. By the time you get to the varsity, you've already had 2 full seasons, and now you're a junior and senior contributing on the varsity. Again, 2 or 3 coaches on that one. So the staff could be as much as 7 or 8 actual instructors of the sport. And when you compare that to a Highland High School, we have 1 coach, 1 level. And that's a huge difference in that comparison. That experience for that kid at Volcano Vista versus a participant here at Highland. The question becomes, sports is a socioeconomic line. Those that have more wealth tend to participate more in selected sports. Where do we balance things out? What can we do to make a contribution in our community to provide that opportunity? And that's when the big equity question drops in. And that's when we can't keep doing the same thing. Will it affect a lot of the other sports? It already has. Sorry about that.
Do you need to get it?
No, we're going to do that for right now. It affects all of our sports, and we're trying to minimize it as much as possible. And the scheduling, for example, right now we have 12 young ladies in women's soccer. Women's soccer. So we're recruiting, trying to get more interested women to participate in soccer. The first game comes out, and now we are going to play La Cueva's varsity girls soccer team, which is a 22-person squad made up of at least 14 or 15 seniors that have been playing soccer probably since they were 6. So when you look at the comparison in quality and equity, is that they're a whole classification larger than us. Is there a lot to be gained there? Right? You asked the question, is that? Now, maybe if we controlled our scheduling, which is what's going to happen in the future, we wouldn't put our student athlete in that scenario. And that's the exciting things of what we've been able to accomplish right now. So football's definitely done the heavy lifting for everybody in our district.
So you're feeling pretty good about how it's headed?
We have had a guarantee from Dr. Blakey, a Highland alum, as a student and as a teacher, and as the zone associate superintendent, that we will be able to do our own scheduling in all of our sports next year. That's for everybody in the district. And what does that really mean? It answers a huge problem of equity. We're going to be able to build schedules that are positive things for our programs. Positive as in match them in classification, match them in ability. There'll still be challenges. It's not like you're going to win a state championship because you can control your schedule. But the overall experience for the student here at Highland High School will be dramatically impacted. And we will start to see programs grow like they should have been growing. And it's a huge, huge win that Highland High School, which I'll give every bit of the credit to Mr. Harris, who has put his head out on the line time and time and time again to draw attention to this inequity. There are a lot of other things that still need to be addressed, but when it comes to this in athletics, we're very thankful that right now all the information is pointing in a very positive way that Highland High School had an opportunity to impact that for all high schools. So we're very happy for that.
Okay.
Your one last
Yeah.
question.
How did you come to your game today with football? Like, how did you were able to see that was a fair
So
matchup
we
against
started
the schools?
letting the Albuquerque Public Schools know that we weren't going to be able to play that as soon as the schedule came out. And so we notified them. In fact, Mr. Harris sent it back and said, you're going to have to redo this the day that it came out. We're not playing this schedule. Not that we're, at that time, it was a much more of an equity over safety situation. And playing 5 large schools on our schedule was more than anybody else in the state of New Mexico was going to play. So it was a significant, we had to do something. So as we get through this, we had meeting after meeting with Dr. Blakey and Mr. Saavedra, the Zone 1 Associate Superintendent. And we came to last Thursday where we had a meeting with them. At the end of it, they asked, basically they were saying that there wasn't much we can do. We weren't going to be able to change its football schedule. And I gave a couple of suggestions. Our third week was open. It's our off week, and I asked if we could play West Las Vegas because there was an email that came out and they were unable to play a game, and they had an open week at that point. They were supposed to open up with Moriarty. Moriarty had a COVID exposure situation, so they were unable to play that first week's game, which is today. Explaining that, and then explaining another situation that I think we could change our schedule for, and to also explain that we're going to wait till after we do our scrimmage with Bernalillo and Aztec to decide if we actually had the physicality to play El Dorado. We would announce on Friday whether we were going to play that El Dorado game. We met with the football coaches. They determined that it was not in the best interest of our athletes to participate in that game safety-wise. So we let them know, and then Dr. Blakey asked me to make some phone calls to see if we could ask those schools for a future date. And that started the ball rolling. Then APS Athletics took over for that. And, again, with the whole COVID thing that's going on as well, there aren't many losers from this situation. We're going to play West Las Vegas, which is a 3A football team that didn't play last year, but they're going to be fielding 12 freshmen. We're going to be fielding 14. It should be somewhat of an equal type football team. Granted, it's 2 below us, but the state of our program versus theirs is a really good matchup. It should be a good game. El Dorado when we let them know we weren't going to play 3 or 4 weeks ago, was asking for a plan B. And APS didn't have one at the time. And then, of course, the COVID situation occurred, and now they're going to play West Mesa on Saturday. So now the families of El Dorado are very much not impacted by changing the schedule. Del Norte unfortunately had a COVID exposure. They're losing their first week's game. And the same thing with Atrisco. They're losing their first weeks because Del Norte was playing them. So for us, it worked out very well. We still have a chance of filling one of our other games with Pewaukee Valley. And Pewaukee, again, would be a 3A team, but we feel like we could compete. They want to play us. And so we still have some scheduling things that can occur. So we're really positive about that. And it really is historical, and nothing like this has ever happened before in high school athletics, as far as I'm concerned, for Highland High School.
Thank you for taking your time to talk with me.
I bet, you bet.